Welcome to the Marketing Mortgages Social for Brokers podcast. Now, today I have with me a lady who needs no introduction. She's very well known within the industry. It's a great start to the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll know I'm talking about Vicki Jefferies. Now, Vicki Jefferies has 25 years experience in the financial services sector and has had roles which included looking after over 3,000 mortgage advisors. And Vicki has also got experience on the lender and provider side as well. So going to be getting lots and lots of knowledge from Vicki today. You can imagine how busy Vicki is, so we're honoured that she's taken time out of her day to be on the podcast, so thank you very much. I had met Vicki on a panel interview we did together on the Kensington Mortgages webinar, and we were talking about how to set up your business for 2024. So I just know, listening to what she spoke about on there, she's going to be a fantastic guest for this podcast. So Vicki, welcome onto the podcast.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Thanks for popping on. We were talking about the weather beforehand. I've got a hoodie on, and Vicki had ordered like a top with long sleeves because it's freezing. We recorded this in June, and I think it's probably about 12 degrees, isn't it?
Yeah, freezing. It's like winter weather.
Yeah, too cold for it. How are things for you anyway? How's your day been? Busy one?
Always busy, Chris. Yeah, started the day at about 7 o'clock sitting here, which is probably why I feel so cold.
And Vicki was like, before we jumped on, she was like, I need to close LinkedIn, close my emails, close my Teams, because it's just consistent. And we'll get into LinkedIn as well shortly and how you use that. But for anybody that doesn't know you, Vicki, can you give us a bit of a background to you, your experience in the industry, and how you've got up to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So, when we say 25 years experience in financial services, I feel really old, but I was quite a young starter. So I joined FS when I was 19. I didn't sort of continue with my education post GCSEs. I was kind of one of these people that wanted to get out in the world and earn some money and make my own way. Interestingly, for mortgage advisors listening, I bought my first house when I was 18. So I've had a mortgage since I was 18. So I guess
self-certified mortgage was that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it probably wasn't something that would pass through.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, most regimes now, but it was a brilliant start for me, and sort of got me into property ownership at a young age, and also made working, career, earning money incredibly important, as you can imagine. Yeah. So I started at Ensley Insurance when I was 19, which was a big personal lines insurer. Those of you that have been through university will recognise them as a student insurer. They were part owned by the NUS. So I spent 12 years working in that business, in the student market, going through the traditional route, the branch network. So as a GI advisor, then a branch manager, then an area manager, then into business development. And then when we closed the branch network, I moved into product and proposition development in Ensley's head office. And I was responsible for things like the rental insurance, the content rental insurance product, the landlord's products, and some of the multi-unit block policies for student accommodation, for example. I was responsible for developing those. Ensley was a fascinating business because although we were a student insurer, we were also one of the first brands to make it big in the aggregator space. So motor insurance was a huge growth generator for that business. And, I can remember the first case that went through on the aggregator sites in Ensley, and it was like a real celebration in the business and a real pivotal moment in terms of financial services and sort of the technology evolution that happened really quickly. And ultimately that business became really successful off the back of the aggregator model and the propositions that were built in that space, as well as continuing in some of the specialist markets. So I gained a lot of experience in the landlords, the letting market, sort of the commercial broking side as well, with some of that experience, as well as obviously a really good grounding in personal lines and regulation. It was really funny. I was telling somebody the other day, I was offered redundancy 3 times at Ensley. As you can imagine, in an evolving business, they were always changing things. And I got offered 3 times. And I thought, on the 3rd time, probably I should just take it.
It's been on 3rd time lucky.
14 years. I think, shall I just take it? So I took it. And really strangely, the day I accepted the redundancy, a headhunter called me and said, do you want to work for a mortgage network? I said, well, I've no idea what that is, but I've just been made redundant and I need a job, so I'll go for the interview.
Perfect timing.
And that interview turned out to be at Personal Touch. So I left Ensley and walked straight into Personal Touch. That was when the business had sort of reinvented itself. So it was an entirely new management structure, loads of new people in the business. It was really exciting. I was brought in initially to run the GI proposition. And then as things changed and people moved about, it felt like each year I just kept taking on more and more. So I took on the protection proposition, the mortgage proposition, and eventually ran the whole relationship side of things. And then, of course, PTFS was acquired by LSL Group 6 years ago. Luckily, I was part of the acquisition and I was brought into Primis as we know it now. I was offered proposition director role, which sort of was a much wider remit and sort of going up to thousands of advisors from the small group.
3,000, yeah. Wow.
From the few hundred that we had in PTFS. And again, like really, really exciting business. And sort of some of the roles and responsibilities that I've had in that role is the predominance is, yes, commercial relationships. So 130 lenders and providers on panel responsible for getting the right propositions for brokers in that role. But also more recently, post-consumer duty, I've been responsible for product governance, which has been quite significant. So fair value assessments, making sure that obviously everything meets the regulation, holding SMF 18 for those responsibilities is quite significant post-consumer duty. So I have the senior manager responsibilities. And then also running a customer service team that helps brokers to place cases. Our experts team in Primis, typically dealing with about 3,000 inquiries a month, helping to brokers to place tricky cases. And then obviously, unfortunately, for most people, my face is all over the press. So I'm sort of I've been the face of Primis.
Face of it, yeah.
Presenting, speaking on panels, just that market knowledge, market insight to sort of bring out from the brokers to the market, but likewise from the market back into brokers. And I think that's probably an area which I really, really enjoy, because I think the intermediary market is a really hard place to navigate. I don't think the general customers understand what we do. But we, representing high 80% of all mortgage lending now is done in intermediary. So
I didn't realise how high that was actually.
It's gone up huge. If you think about the high street lenders in terms of, you try and get an appointment in a high street bank at the moment, anything.
If they exist, if they're still there.
Yeah. So obviously with the demise of advisors on the high street, the independent businesses that are in our space have become more and more critical. And I think, as customer needs changed, cost of living, the different and strange lives that we all lead now, we don't all follow a normal pathway now. Advice is really important. And I am so passionate about what we do in our part of the market, whether that be mortgage protection or GI. We do offer such an important service to the end customer, and really I see my the roles I have in the industry as sort of playing that part, as sort of playing that back two ways and making sure that there's an understanding of that and that brokers have got the right information, but likewise the regulatory bodies and the wider market and the end customers have got that understanding about the value of advice and what brokers bring.
Keeping everyone in check, isn't it? It's making sure that not only that the mortgage brokers have the tools for them to access the lenders, but the lenders also have the tools to update the brokers. And you're the person that's keeping all those cogs working in the background, aren't you? So, when do you get a chance to sleep, I suppose, is the next question. I can imagine with 3,000 people, your WhatsApp must be pinging left, right and centre and your emails are going. And
I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned from early on in my career is that, this industry is about people. So if you're not willing to have your phone on and your email open and stand at events and go to networking and talk to people, then you're probably in the wrong job. So
you're not going to get far, are you?
No. So I do, it is full on, and I'm a kind of 100% in or nothing kind of person. So I'm 100% in. And I think if somebody has got a challenge or a problem, or they just want to talk something through, then we have to value that. And I like to make myself available for people, whether that be a customer in a network or, a peer or a colleague in the industry. Without those connections and the communication, it makes life really hard. Things change rapidly in our industry. We all need to keep abreast of things. So yeah,
And it's so much harder, isn't it, when there isn't that office environment? There's a lot more people working from home. It can become very lonely. So you need those bits of technology and those tools to enable you to do it. But obviously, technology is huge, and all these tools that we can pay for and these subscriptions and everything are fantastic. But the thing that you spoke about on the Kensington webinar was, in a world of technology, yes, it's great, but what can brokers do to lay better foundations? And the reason I ask you this is because you've seen so many different companies, the rise of some fantastic companies, the fall of others, unfortunately. What do you see the really good ones do?
So I think what we should first of all address is that there's lots of different shapes and sizes of businesses. So I think if you look at FCA data, there's very few significantly large firms in our space. The typical sweet spot is like a 2 to 3 person firm. And there's also a lot of sole traders in the market as well. I think typically the 2 to 3 person firms are more likely to be working remote and not in an office now. We've seen a lot more of that. So trying to think about, first of all, if you are in a small business or you're working as a sole trader, how do you widen your understanding, your network and your engagement? Because if you're sat in a big firm of 20 other people, you can ask all of those people all the time. If you're in a 2 to 3 person firm or you're working on your own, you need to have a strong network of people that you can contact, that you can just run a case by, that you can think, well, what do you think? What did you think of this lender? What, did this case go through? And just sort of bounce things off people. So I think, first of all, advisors should invest serious time in improving their professional network. Now, whether that be through traditional networking events face to face, whether that be through LinkedIn, through cherry feeds, or whatever that might be, because it's different things for different people. You must invest time in your network, because your network is your base, your knowledge, and also on a personal level, people to share with when we're having a tough time. This market's really hard. We never know what's coming down the tracks, and we never know what the government are going to give us, or what's going to happen. So it's always good to have a network to support each other as well as your knowledge. So that would be my first thing: is don't focus on your professional network as a base. And it's like any relationship. You have to nurture it, and you have to keep things alive and watered and looked after. So don't just think you're shaking hands with someone at a networking event. You could call them in 6 months and ask them for a favour. You must nurture the relationships and keep them alive. That's really important.
Definitely. We did an email on this, an email that we sent out to all, like, everybody's clients, and it was, you'd never propose on the first date.
No.
So you can't just have one date and ask them straight away and say, do you want to marry me? You have to do that same thing we teach clients to do with social media. You nurture that relationship for 6 months. Then when they're ready to ask for business, you can propose them and they'll come to you. It's exactly the same as your network, isn't it? You can't say hello to someone and then go, what do you think about this case? What would you do differently? No, that's a great tip.
And I think I was working with an exec coach last year, and she was talking to me about this like personal piggy bank. So when you meet somebody, it's about learning personal facts, being willing to open up to somebody and then sharing with you. I don't mean really personal. I just mean like, how many kids have you got? What car do you drive? Where do you like to holiday? Just general chit chat. But the more you connect with somebody on a personal level, the more credits you have, which enables you then on a professional level to ask for a favour or ask for support, because you've got a deeper personal connection with somebody.
Great way of thinking of it, because if you had gone in cold, or you tried to connect with somebody that maybe wasn't on the personal level, if you share those personal facts, you'll understand if it's a person that you want in your life or you want to have a chat with. So I do like that. Try and give them the soft facts. Very similar that we talk about on social media is if you can put out there maybe a hobby or something that you do, say if it was pottery or something, if one of your clients sees that you do pottery and they do it as well, they're much more likely to use you than the person who is a mechanic further
Yeah.
down the road. So no, I really like that. So that's your 2 to 3 person business.
Yeah.
Are there any other foundations? You spoke about something in the Kensington one about simple pen and paper.
Yeah. Oh gosh, what did I say now? Let's think.
So you were talking about everybody's got all these fancy bits of technology, but pen and paper is one of the biggest things. You can write down your plans. You can have a paper file on people. People, I think, forget to go back to basics. So what are some of the basics that the good firms do, whether that be a 1-person business or a 20-person business?
Yeah, so it's definitely about that understanding the soft facts and getting to know your clients. So, I mean, not necessarily a paper file, but what I like to do with people is almost do like a bit of a spider chart of things that I know about somebody. So with you, Chris, I might say, right, Chris likes a blue hoodie. He's got loads of self-motivation books. He's really hot on social media. His wife goes to London for work, and I might just do like a bit of a spider graph. So I've got like a bit of a framework, and you can do that with your customers as well. So just trying to remember some of the soft facts that help you to engage and might actually lead to additional sales, for example, particularly if you're trying to think about protection or GI conversations. I think it's really important that we collect the soft facts in the fact finds as well, because A, the regulator is expecting us to have a well-rounded view of the client, but B, that really helps you in those difficult conversations. So understanding, likes and dislikes, what their preferences are, even, I know we've talked about this for years, but simple things about understanding your clients' birthdays and acknowledging that every year, that's a massive tick in the box. People remember that.
Yeah.
And there's lots of things like that, that you can sort of prompt, especially when it comes to like, if you've collected like children's birthdays and stuff like that, there's loads you can do around that. So I think the soft facts are important, understanding people as human beings and having that on file, because if you're any successful broker, you are going to have multiple clients every week. And it can, if you've got the best memory, it could be really hard to remember. So there's no harm in having that recall in their files, as long as it's stored confidentially, to be able to call on those soft facts and utilise those. And I think as well, there's a bit of a misunderstanding of mortgage brokers. So I used to hate the word that we used in the industry where we used to call them, you guys, order takers. Like, I hate that so much, because I think as a mortgage broker, you're so privileged with the personal information that you know about your customers. I can't think of any other profession where their full family setup, their full finances, their full medical history, anything that's gone wrong or not so great in the past, there's no other professional role that has all of that encompassed into one. And it's a real privilege to be able to hold that information and help people navigate themselves through that, because that's ultimately what a broker does. So almost like utilise that privilege to help the customers and also help yourselves in being a better broker.
And I think we've seen that shift over the last few years, especially since COVID, that when I was in a estate agency, mortgage brokers were in the branch and it was you pass them the file and they get the mortgage.
Yes.
Whereas now mortgage brokers have been shifted in the eye of the public, in the eye of the media, as a trusted partner, nearly as important like as an accountant, really.
Yeah.
And it's almost, and I think it's this generation now have been through the internet generation where there's so much information, and that was great up until a point, until there started to be false information. And then now they're trying to decipher, well, are people talking rubbish on the internet about mortgages or is it true? I now know if I go to a trusted mortgage professional, I can get the actual answer. So instead of just being an order taker, especially when it was a sub 2% rate, it was a case of mortgage brokers. Mortgage brokers, I remember speaking to a few of them saying it sucked the life out of it a bit, because they turn up, I want that house. I've offered 20 grand over, and I can get a sub 2% rate. And it was like a transaction for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Whereas now, although it sounds like a much tougher market, mortgage brokers are being able to have those conversations about protection, about their future. And it's more of a partnership rather than just this is the one I want, hit a button, done. I don't know if you've seen that shift as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I say to all brokers that I work with is have confidence and faith in yourself, because you are qualified. You are qualified.
Yeah.
You have to be qualified. You have to prove your competency each year. You have to go through your training and your tests and record your CPD. You are a professional. So have confidence and faith to be able to say that to customers. I think one of the biggest shifts that we've seen in sort of the last 12 to 18 months is this customers feeling like they're equipped and know everything. So we never used to have a scenario where most customers would know base rate, inflation rate. They wouldn't, before Martin Lewis started telling us, no one knew what mortgage rates were. You go to see your estate agency advisor or your mortgage advisor, they tell you. But now we have customers that turn up to a meeting with the broker and say, right, I've seen this rate, I want this rate, I think base rate's going to do this. And there's almost like another layer to advice now where the broker has to almost like talk the customer down, give them the reality check before they move into, the professional advice that they should be. So I think that's really important, that brokers are confident to be able to articulate the professional nature of what we do and how important that is to the customer to navigate them through.
And that's it. It's exactly that. They're coming to the appointment with information, whether it's real or fake.
Yes.
The only person that can verify that is the broker. Perfect examples are like compare the market websites that somebody could come to you and go, I've seen something at a 3% rate. And then the mortgage broker actually goes at it and goes, well, you need to put a 45% deposit down for that 3% rate. You may have seen it on screen, but actually looking into the small print, it's completely different. So it's interesting you speaking to brokers hearing the same thing. Now, this is a question that a lot of brokers are talking about at the moment, where they've maybe grown to that 3 to 5 person business and they're at the point where they're managing a team, they're doing compliance, they're doing their social media, they're doing the marketing, and they're still doing appointments. And they've got to the point and thought, right, I need to take a step back, but I'm scared to do so because I don't know what would happen. You have obviously seen a lot of this over lots and lots of different companies. What would your advice be to Mary Smith, who is thinking about taking that step back and almost handing over the reins to the team? What would you recommend to do?
Yeah, it's really, really difficult. And I think particularly over the last couple of years where it's been really sensitive and hard to run small businesses, I completely understand why there's nervousness about this. This is probably one of the most common things that we face. I think, first of all, it's about having confidence and faith in yourself to lead a business. So admitting to yourself that I am a business leader and I do need to do this and I want to work on my business rather than working in the business. So first of all, you have to accept that. Now, it doesn't have to be a straight 5 days to 0 days. I think what you should do, first of all, is start by being really regimented with your time. So saying, right, okay, so we've got a 5-day week. I'm going to do appointments for 3 days a week and I'm going to work on the business for 2 days a week. And be really regimented with how you split your time out and be really protective of your time. So on those 2 days when you're working on your business, really strict. I can't deal with the customers. Admin will have to support me or a colleague will have to support me because I'm working on the business. And then gradually, as you start to see the benefits of working on the business in those 2 days, it will allow you to slowly work up those days and move away from the appointments. So first of all, don't think it's a straight all or nothing, because it absolutely doesn't have to be, as long as you're strict with your time. I think it's, obviously thinking about myself in the corporate world, it's a similar situation as to when you get promoted in a role and you get promoted, but you're still clinging on to almost like your comfort zone of the role that you've left.
Okay, yeah.
Because you're top of your game in that. You've smashed it because you've been promoted. So you almost like revert into your comfort zone. So it's about breaking through that and putting yourself outside of that circle and making it feel uncomfortable. It's exactly the same scenario. So having that, that belief and going for it and making yourself feel uncomfortable is really important, I think. Back to the point that I made at the very start as well, it's about investing time in yourself and your own development. So spending time thinking about the networking that we talked about. Maybe previously you networked with a lot of advisors. Now what you need to do is network with business owners. So surround yourself with business owners. And that doesn't necessarily need to be mortgage businesses. It could be your local chamber of commerce, just lots of small business owners, small or medium-sized business owners. So immerse yourself in new networks and new people who can help you with running a business, particularly thinking about how you take those more risky steps, thinking about cash flow, how to gear up your business, what risks to take and when. Really learning from other business owners that are maybe on a different part of their journey is really important. A lot of the networks do specifically offer support on this. So there's some really talented business development people in the networks and in the clubs. So utilise them. Often these people have been the people that have turned businesses around themselves. Don't feel afraid to ask, because that's part of our community and everybody wants to support other people. So don't feel afraid to ask. And I am also a believer of just re-educating yourself. So read as many books as you can. I'm a huge fan of podcasts. They're brilliant if you're a busy person. When you're running around in the car, commuting, going out to appointments, listen to people that you find inspiring and inspirational that are in the business world. And sort of like, I love Stephen Bartlett. I'm never going to be Stephen. I'm never going to be him. But there's elements of how he's structured and run his businesses. I think, I could use that. If I can take one or two things out of a podcast and put it into what I do every day, then that ultimately makes a difference. So I think that's another thing, just more widely thinking about that. It's business content rather than advisor content, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it. That's why we interview so many people on here that have so many different sizes of businesses, because you'll always pick. And what I love, I always know a successful broker, because I speak to one person who has like a team up and down the UK, and he listens to a lot of these podcasts. It doesn't matter if it's a 1-person business or a 100-person business.
Yeah.
He picks something from every single episode, whether it's a tool that somebody uses or the way somebody's grown their team. Don't think because you are a 3-person business, you need to learn from people that have 3-person businesses.
Exactly.
Or don't think they have to be in the mortgage market. Exactly what Vicki just said. Go and listen to Stephen Bartlett. Go and listen to some, I think comedy podcasts are always good because of their timing and the way that they speak.
Yeah.
If you can inject a bit of your humour into appointments or your social media content, it's always going to help. I absolutely love something that you spoke about before, and I didn't want to interrupt you. There was 2 things. The first thing is doing 2 days per week at the beginning, because I think we think it's got to be all or nothing.
Yeah.
I've got to step back from mortgage advice now, but to do 2 days on the business and then maybe 2 days advising and 1 day's worth of admin, that's so much more productive than going cold turkey and doing 5 days on the business.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is think of it like a promotion. I think that's such a great mindset to have, that if I got a promotion today, I would want to still hang on to that position and see what that person's doing with it. It's completely natural. Yet when we run a business, we think we should just be able to go, right, that's ended. I'm now on to this one. It can't happen like that, can it? So
and I
really
think
good bits
we
of
also have
information.
to have a bit of self-reflection here and sort of accept that not everybody's going to be us. So we get this frustration, don't we, when we move onwards and upwards, and we go, well, why I used to do that? Why don't they do that? But you have to sort of take a step back and accept that everybody's different and everybody finds their own way and their own way of developing and growing. It's just the person that sort of takes your clients on or takes your role on in the business, it doesn't mean they're going to have the same journey as you. Their journey might be different, and your role as the business leader is to guide them through their journey, not to impose your journey onto them. I think that's really important.
Try and give up those reins. I know it's harder than you think, but it's a way to do it. Okay, I'm going to ask a question in a second that's been put to us by our audience, which on LinkedIn we did a poll and we found out the question that people wanted to hear the answer to. We like to donate £10 to a charity of your choice, Vicki, before I ask that one. So which charity do you want us to make the donation to?
I would love you to donate to the Lily May Foundation, which is a fabulous charity that supports families who have unfortunately suffered stillborn. One of our colleagues in our business has had a family experience, and we have been supporting that charity for 12 months. Really, really important charity. They do some fabulous work.
Okay, fantastic. We'll make that donation to you to say thank you for coming on. So the question is, what is the number one tool that you use day in, day out that you couldn't live without?
Right, the number one tool. Like, I'm going to be really corny, and I'm just going to say, like, it's me and it's my voice. That's my
Your
best
voice?
tool.
Okay, yeah.
My voice is my best tool. Like, asking the right questions, and finding out the detail, lots of open questions, lots of listening, absorbing. I think that is the best tool I could ever have. I don't think you could find me a technology mining device that finds out the most information that I do from lenders, providers and brokers every day. So I hope it's not too conceited, but
I love that. I think that's fantastic. There's all the and this goes back to the exact reason why I got Vicki on the podcast, because listening to her on the Kensington one, you just said there's all the technology in the world, but nothing is better than that pen and paper and finding out about your clients. It's the exact reason I wanted to get you on. That is the perfect way to wrap it up. Vicki, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate your time.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.